What's going on YouTube? So while many brands have given up on small, affordable sedans, Nissan still recognizes that this is an important segment. That's why they recently released new versions of the Altima, Versa, and now this all-new 2020 Nissan Sentra. But does it have what it takes to beat heavyweight rivals like the Civic and Corolla? Let's go ahead and find out. So Nissans recently have been switching to a more aggressive design language, and that is very apparent here with this all-new Sentra. So up in the front, we have a much larger grille than we used to on the last generation. This is the newest iteration of the V-Motion grille, of course. And as you can see, it goes all the way from the top down here to the bottom. And then here on this SR trim, we also have a smoked chrome around the edges here just to give it a more aggressive look. Now coming over here to your headlights, there's actually a variety of them offered on this Sentra. So the standard option is going to be a halogen light for both the S and the SV. However, on this SR, we have reflector LEDs. Now if you go for the premium package on either the SV or the SR, that will give you the fancier projector LED headlights. And then down here at the bottom, you will find LED fog lights on the SR only. Now to go along with the more aggressive front styling, we have a new 18-inch alloy here on the SR with the black contrast that really goes well with all the black elements all around the vehicle. Now of course your lower trim levels, they will come with smaller wheels. It's going to be 16-inch steel wheels with hubcaps on the base S model, and then 16-inch alloys when you go for the SV. Now heading on up here to your mirrors, they will be heated on the SV and up. And I'm very impressed to say that every single trim of the Sentra has standard blind spot monitoring. I don't think anyone else in the class does that right now, so it's definitely a very impressive touch.
Now here at the side, the Sentra is always going to be pretty aggressive, especially for this class of vehicle, since you will have Nissan's signature floating roof design, so this part will be blacked out regardless of what trim you choose. However, the SR does have an option of getting the blacked out roof, which I'm a huge fan of. It's available in about 4 different color options, one of which is this nice orange color. Now, walking around to the rear design itself, pretty much looks like a baby Altima back here, and it looks very sporty for this class. So up top we do have a spoiler. This is going to be on the SR trim only, and then we do have some taillights. Unfortunately, these are not LED. And then down at the bottom we have a revised rear diffuser for the SR, as well as an exposed exhaust pipe. Now another area where this Sentra really knocks it out of the park is going to be in your safety systems, since it leads the Nissan lineup in terms of standard safety equipment across all of the models. Nearly everything is standard, including automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, lane departure assist, rear auto braking, and auto high beam headlights. Now the one thing that you will miss out on is adaptive cruise control if you go for that base S trim. Well guys, that sums up the really cool exterior styling of the Sentra. So now let's go ahead and hop inside before we take it out on a drive.
So on the new Sentra, Nissan is nicely including their intelligent entry system as well as remote start on all but the very base trim level. And then to get inside the vehicle itself, there's not a sensor behind the handle, so you just press that button right there. Alright, so first taking a look inside of this all-new Sentra, I have to say it really makes a strong first impression because things look very, very upscale. Now talking about the interior materials, Nissan is including a really wide variety of options on this new Sentra. So on all 3 trim levels, you're actually going to have a cloth seat as standard in this charcoal color. But here on the SR, as you can see, this middle part here is kind of a suede finish instead of that, kind of rougher cloth. However, when you go for the premium package, that's where things get interesting. So on the SR Premium, that will get you leatherette seating, also in charcoal but with orange stitching. And if you go for the SV Premium, you get this really fancy looking quilted real leather in an exclusive tan color. Now as far as your door trim, it is very nicely finished. You have leather that runs all through here, as well as through this top part with the color contrast stitching. And along the top, this is a soft touch plastic. As far as your window, it is automatic on just the driver's window. And then coming down here to your seats, you will find a 6-way manual adjusting seat, standard across all 3 of the trim levels. But if you add the premium package to either the SV or the SR, it will be 8-way power. And I pretty much already discussed the seat. It is a very interesting seat, having the different types of cloth, really cool like stitching details, and it's extremely comfortable in typical Nissan fashion. So in addition to having a fully modernized design, the material quality inside of this new Sentra has definitely taken a big step up. Now up here on the upper dash, the only part that's a hard touch is going to be right above the gauge cluster. However, all of this area, this is all a soft touch plastic with this genuine color contrast stitching detail. And then dropping down here to your lower areas, they've actually put a leatherette padding all along this center console with another stitching detail, great to rest your knee against. And as you can see, all the materials, they look nice and they also feel really solid and fit together well. You will also have push button start located right there. So checking out your gauges here, this is pretty much the typical Nissan affair, but it does have a really nice 7-inch multifunction display in the middle, so long as you choose something besides for the base trim level. Of course, this does contain all the typical affair of information, including various things for your safety systems. And then coming back to the steering wheel, you do have electric power assisted steering. And it is leather wrapped on all but the base trim level, and as you can see, you do also have a flat bottom design. As far as the actual adjustment, of course, it is manual tilt and telescoping, and you can also get heating if you go for the SR with the premium package. Alright, so let's go ahead and move into interior storage, which I have to say is definitely a slam dunk for this class of vehicle. So looking inside this center console, this is gigantic for a compact sedan. As you can see, it goes down quite a ways and it is very wide. Additionally, you have 2 gigantic cup holders, you have another little storage area right here, and you have a large pad, which is good for sticking a phone. It is not a wireless phone charging pad, however, but you do still have your traditional connections right there and a 12-volt outlet. Now coming back to the shifter, it is just a traditional shifter. So you pull back for drive, you can pull back once more for low. And then heading into reverse, you will find a standard backup camera across all the trim levels. And we do also have active trajectory as well as parking sensors. However, if you want Nissan's around view monitor system, you're going to have to add the premium package to this SR. And then back behind it, like I said, this is actually a storage area. It looks like it would be where an electronic parking brake would be, but that's actually not available on the Sentra. Alright, so let's move on up here to the climate controls. Now, I want to say that this does kind of give me like a Mercedes vibe here. It reminds me a lot of the CLA we were in recently with these 3 little individual vents. But we do have the dual zone automatic setup. That comes on the SV and up. So as you can see, it is very simple. You just adjust these big knobs and everything is located physically right there. One thing you will notice is missing is heated seats. Those are not standard on any trim level, so you have to access those through the premium package on both the SV or the SR. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the audio systems. Now, most of the trim levels, they're going to come with a 6-speaker sound system, but you can add an 8-speaker Bose sound system to the SR through the premium package. But let's go ahead and sample the standard 6-speaker one. Overall sound quality of this system is basically what I expect for this class. So let's go ahead and take a look around this new Nissan Connect system. So this is of course the latest software, and it is paired with an 8-inch display on the vast majority of the trim levels, though if you go for the base model it will have a 7-inch display instead. Now I won't look around through every type of feature here, but I will point out the highlights. One of the things I noticed, I guess in a sign of the times, is that navigation has actually been eliminated from the Sentra entirely. It's not even offered, but you will find both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay on board, so long as you get the 8-inch display. Now moving on up from that, we have a manually dimming mirror. You can get an auto dimming one if you go for the SR Premium. And additionally, we are missing a power moonroof. That is an option through the premium package, once again, on both the SV and the SR.
Alrighty, so getting back to the Sentra's rear seat, I have to say, upon first getting back here, I'm pretty impressed. There's a lot of space. Technically, it comes in at 37 inches of both leg and headroom, which is larger than the Nissan Altima. Did that clearly, it had to have went straight out. So as far as the space is concerned, we're looking at 37 inches of both leg and headroom, which actually places it above the Nissan Altima and right in line with the larger offerings in the class, like the Honda Civic. And behind Drew's seating position, I probably have, I would say, at least 5 or 6 inches of rear leg room, and my feet can easily slide up underneath the seat. So definitely comfortable for you and all of your family members. And then the second thing that I noticed was the kind of luxury features that are thrown in. Most in this class really don't give you anything, and this does give you a smart charging USB standard across all of the models. And we do also have a fold-down armrest with cup holders inside. And then the other thing that I noticed was that this door trim, it's pretty much all comprised of leather, so your materials do actually follow through, which is very rare for a vehicle in this class. Now to get in the trunk of this Sentra, all you have to do is locate the button under the lid. And once inside, you're going to find a very impressive amount of space here as well, because you're going to find 14.3 cubic feet of space, which puts it above the Toyota Corolla. Still a little bit less than the Honda Civic, but that's quite an impressive amount of space for a vehicle in this class. And the seats do also fold 60-40 split. Now the passenger seat across all of the Sentra models are going to be manually adjusting. And in front, you will have a really good sized glove box. This is surprisingly large for a vehicle in this class. And up top, we do have a sun visor. You are missing out on the light, but you do have a mirror, and it does extend as well as detach.
So first taking off here in this all-new 2020 Sentra and getting up to about 50 miles an hour. I have to say that was pretty easy, especially for this class of vehicle. You know, this does feel quite a bit more powerful than I was expecting it to feel like. You know, and that is due to having powertrain enhancements over the last generation. So what we're looking at is about a 20% enhancement over the 2019 model, since we've got a new engine on board. So that engine's going to be a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, making 149 horsepower and 146 pound-feet of torque. That's the only engine offered on the Sentra, so that kind of occupies the middle ground between, like the Corolla, for instance, it offers a low-powered version, and then the sport versions, they come with a little bit of a higher-powered option. So this kind of straddles the middle ground between those things.
Yeah, and it does fall pretty much in line with the Hyundai Elantra. I don't know if Drew agrees with me on this, but I really think that this engine it sounds pretty much quieter than a lot in this segment. I don't know if it's due to the CVT keeping it down lower in its RPMs, but it does seem pretty quiet and refined for a 2-liter engine in this segment of vehicle, which is something that a lot of them can't say.
Yeah, I do have to say that it does sound quite quiet, even when you're really getting after it. Like you said, some in this segment are just, it's just like absolutely screaming when you really get after it. So this isn't penalizing you for accelerating hard. Now, like Mason already mentioned, this does have a continuously variable transmission, as you pretty much expect from Nissan. But what we're looking at is the newest generation, the newest iteration of that CVT. So, like the Altima, it does behave in a very similar way. It has an aggressive shift simulation. So, really, it's pretty convincing as far as mimicking an automatic transmission, because it's not just an audible thing. It does actually, like when you get after it, it kind of kicks down in the same way that an automatic transmission does, and it has kind of a feel like this little bit of a kick sensation when it shifts through a gear.
And it's also really worth noting that 99% of the cars in this segment, besides for really the Mazda 3, are going to come with the CVT anyway. And Nissan really does probably top of the class, in terms of how they do their CVTs, because they do them in all their products. So they kind of have it down pat, especially in their newest form.
Now, something just occurred that I've never really experienced in a car. It kind of threw me off for a second. Then I remembered what I had read. This has haptic feedback as far as the lane departure alert goes inside of the steering wheel. So instead of getting like a big screeching beep, scares you to death, this is actually vibrating the steering wheel. It's a kind of a more pleasant way to alert you. Sometimes, like if you have other people in the car, some loud scary noise, it kind of publicly shames you.
Wake up the kids in the back too.
So I like that you have a different method here. I don't know why no one has actually thought to do that yet that I know of in this segment. I want to get into this car's dynamics, because that's a spot that Nissan really put a lot of focus on. It's kind of to take battle to some of the best driving vehicles in this segment. That tends to emphasize that a little more than other segments. I have to say, I'm definitely impressed by the changes that Nissan had made. Obviously, the last generation was not an enthusiast choice or anything. But this one here, I can really tell immediately the difference in the chassis tuning. Really is taking these corners flat. It feels really solid. You have very minimal body roll. Yeah, this definitely is quite nice. I'm really impressed. I don't feel like hardly any body roll at all. I will say the steering, even on this SR though, is a little on the lighter side. So I think that the Civic and the Mazda 3, they're definitely going to have the heavier steering setup, so it's going to give you a little bit more road feel. That being said, it's certainly not bad, and it's very responsive, so you can just turn just a little bit and you get a nice response.
And that does kind of play nicely with this vehicle's ride quality. Like Drew was mentioning, this is not the hardest core like sports whatever. Even though this is an SR and looks really cool on the outside, it still does mainly focus on like the luxury side of things. So when you're just cruising down the road, it does continue to maintain that really quiet cabin. And also the ride quality is really good. We've been driving for quite a while at this point, and when you hit a bump, it really is not jarring, which some in the class can be. Of course, this is a cheaper class of vehicle, so sometimes they cut stuff out like ride quality, and I really am happy to report that it doesn't seem like they've done too bad of a job with that here. And now that we're back up to speed, I'm going to go ahead and get a sound level reading. This is a country road, so we're going to go a little bit, less fast than we normally do, but this is a rougher road, so it's probably about even.
Yeah, we're gonna go about 45 here.
Looks like we're looking around 58 decibels. So that's actually, I think that it might be exactly what the Corolla hatch we just did a few weeks ago got. So very class competitive in terms of its noise level.
Yeah, I think it sounds pretty quiet in here.
Now, of course, one of the most important aspects about any vehicle in this class is going to be its fuel economy, because, that's a huge aspect. The fuel economy for this Sentra comes in at 29 city, 39 highway, 33 combined for the S and SV trims. And then if you go for this SR, it's going to be reduced a little bit, down by 1 mpg combined. And that's pretty similar ratings for, most of the class. Is similar to the Corolla. However, it is a little bit worse than the Honda Civic.
So to go ahead and conclude here, I have to say I'm very impressed by the way that this Sentra drives, in addition to, several other things like I pointed out all through the video. This really is a great improvement.
Yeah.
The previous generation was getting, kind of old. The styling was a little frumpy. This really is a sleek redesign inside and out. And when you get behind the wheel, it definitely drives in a very, sleek, while still being extremely comfortable and family oriented.
Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and discuss the pricing for this all-new Sentra model. Now, I'm happy to report that the prices haven't risen too much for this all-new. It's about $1,000 more than it was last year. So for the very base S, that's going to be $19,090. SV, $20,270, and then you have this one, which is the SR, at $21,430. Now, we do have a few options on that. So we have a $75 bumper protector, as well as the two-tone paint for $595, and then carpeted floor mats $205, and then the destination charge is $925. For this particular model, as equipped, comes in at $23,230. Which I have to say I'm super duper impressed at that price point, because this thing looks really good on the outside. I'm just going to go flat out and say it looks really expensive on the outside, and really this interior is nice as well for $23,000, which a lot of the competition can't even touch. Well, guys, we've enjoyed watching this in-depth look at the 2020 Nissan Sentra SR. We really appreciate you watching, and if you made it this far in the video, hopefully that means you at least enjoyed it a little, so be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.